Boom! Merry Christmas, Orchid.
Happy holidays.
Merry Christmas.
Happy holidays.
Stop it. So, here we are. It's another edition of the Orchid and Kato show. Today, when we come back here next week at this time, Christmas will be over. Now, we couldn't say Merry Christmas next week because Christmas is over, but ironically, the following week, the day after New Year's, we'll still be able to say Happy New Year.
Yeah.
I mean, isn't that weird? Or am I overthinking it?
I think you're overthinking it.
Fine. All right, I'm overthinking it. But let's get on to the week that was wrestling this week. Of course, the big story of the week was the way Monday Night Raw started with the McMahons all sort of coming out and getting things rolling in a certain direction. And how did you feel about that opening segment of Monday Night Raw?
I thought it was fine. I don't know. I think that we didn't really need all of the McMahons to come out. I think that it would have been cooler had it just been Vince McMahon being like, my kids are effing this up. I'm going to
effing this up. All right.
Take it back.
Yeah. Okay.
And you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. But I think that the general consensus is across the board that the fans think that it's still Vince.
Yeah.
Like Vince is pulling the strings. So I was okay with all of them coming out. I had read yesterday evening that Raw's rating was up 20% from the week before. So, what they did on this given night worked. Mm-hmm. But do you think it's going to work long term? How did you feel about the format? I mean, we're going to talk a little more about Raw and SmackDown, but how did you feel about like the overall feel of Raw and SmackDown as opposed to weeks past?
I thought it was better. I think if you put Vince on TV, people are going to watch.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's just nostalgia, that people want to see him. And it's different than when you get somebody else coming back, like The Undertaker. Like, yeah, it's exciting to see him, but it's not the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here's what I think. I think that the reason that Raw's rating has been so terrible is what I've said time and time again. There's no stars on Raw. Mm-hmm. Vince McMahon is a star. For better or for worse, he is a star because he's been created in a way that his character has been created in a way that he feels like a star. Mm-hmm. And people are always going to gravitate toward stars on television. Mm-hmm. And, unless they can find a way to create stars, like real crossover effect stars, things are going to go back to the way they were. Because they have no... Like the matches, I know everybody's saying, well, we're tired of the same old matches. And I agree, I'm tired of the same old matches. But in 3 months, when we're seeing this, people are going to say, well, there's no good writing now. Look, I mean, guys are just wrestling each other. I mean, this is crazy. What are we doing here? The fans are, as Daniel Bryan would say, fickle. So I don't think what they're doing is going to work. And here's my rationale why. Stars in wrestling need to win matches. Mm-hmm. And win a lot. Like almost all the time. That's the way stars are created in wrestling. They have a lot of charisma and they win a lot of matches. That's how John Cena became a huge star. That's how Roman Reigns became a star. That's the way Stone Cold, The Rock, The Undertaker, Hulk Hogan, Roddy Piper, Bruno Sammartino. It's a true and tried formula. And the reason why I don't think that we're going to see any change going forward as far as a sustained growth in ratings is because on TLC, they had a guy who was winning a lot leading up to the show. Mm-hmm. Winning. And then he lost a match to a guy that, I don't have a problem with. I think that Finn Balor is fine. Mm-hmm. But Drew McIntyre lost a match that basically meant nothing. So here we are back to, and it's been a complaint of mine for 10 years, 50-50 booking. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. Wins don't matter, losses don't matter. But they do. Mm-hmm. They do in the grand scheme of creating stars. And when I saw Drew McIntyre lose and I have no special attachment to Drew McIntyre. I think he's fine. I mean, but it felt like maybe, hey, we're starting to create a star here. And they've sort of done that with Braun Strowman. He doesn't, well, he loses more than a star should. I mean, he's lost clean to Brock Lesnar repeatedly. So, like, that's just it. I mean, until they find a guy, their biggest star in the company shows up 6 times a year. Brock Lesnar. You don't see him lose.
Right.
And until they decide that, hey, we are serious about sticking with the person, a guy or a girl. The same thing happened at the main event of the pay-per-view, where, for better or for worse, Becky Lynch is the most over person on the show, and she didn't win her match. I have nothing against Asuka. Asuka's fine. I like Asuka. But Becky Lynch, if they're trying to create stars, should have won that match.
Yeah.
Elias feels like he could be a star. He wasn't even on the main pay-per-view and was a blip on Monday Night Raw. So you cannot convince me that things are going to change. Just throwing new things, new poop at the wall, is still poop at the wall. So they're saying, oh, we got all these new stars coming up. But unless they present them properly, where we're seeing the freak Lars, what's his name? Whatever. Lars win every week for 9 months. Like, he's not a star. He's just a guy, a filler on the show. So I don't think things are going to change. I think things are going to stay the same. If anything, in the next few months, they're going to get worse. Because I think they think their mentality is that we need to have just different matches. That's going to fix. If we have different people wrestling different people, that's going to fix this problem. And that is not the problem right now. We have we have lots of good wrestlers. The casual fan is never going to tune in for a good wrestler. They want to see stars, and we're not creating stars. Do you think I'm wrong?
No,
or do you think just having new matches is going to fix things?
I can see what you're saying. I do think, though, that Vince McMahon is going to be on TV every week for a while now. And I think that he's going to be the star that you're saying WWE needs.
Well, I mean, he can't hurt. He can't hurt being on television.
Yeah.
He's an all-time great character and an all-time great entertainment personality. But he felt uncomfortable on Monday night on television. Like and it's just part of getting older. It's just life in general. He doesn't have that same zip and vigor to his enunciation and his presentation, and like, it's nothing against him. I mean, he's an icon in the world of everything. But his thing on SmackDown sort of felt rehearsed and forced, and the thing on Raw, to me, his part of it sort of felt blah. It was nice seeing him on TV. It's nice hearing his music, but he just doesn't have the same zip with his voice and his just overall presentation on television. So I don't know how long that is going to last. Like, it's nice. This is probably going to be the last. I mean, he might live another 20 years. Who knows?
Yeah.
But this might be the last sustained length of time we see Vince McMahon on television. So that's nice. But I don't know. I just don't think at the end of the day, it's still wrestling. And you need to have a star that can go in the ring like a John Cena. And I don't know who that's going to be.
Yeah.
I think backtracking to the pay-per-view, TLC, I think that, what I had heard and read was that, Vince was unhappy with Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose, rightfully so. Well, let's talk about it. How did you feel about their match?
I didn't think it was as bad as what other people were saying it is. I mean, I kind of wish that there would have been a little bit more of a stipulation, that they would have had, like, tables, ladders, or chairs or something. And I felt that way about the New Day, Usos, and the Bar. Like, I didn't, like, it's TLC. Like, you only get this pay-per-view once a year. Like, do something with it. So, I don't know. I do wish that they would have had a stipulation, but I thought the match was okay. I don't understand what, like, I don't understand the crowd. Like,
well, I think part of the crowd, there was two problems with the crowd during the Ambrose and Rollins match. I think they expected more out of it because it's what would be referred to as a blood feud. Mm-hmm. And if you do wrestling whenever two guys fighting over a championship. But this, in theory, should have been more about Roman or the Dean Ambrose turning his back on Seth Rollins. It should have been a fight.
Yeah.
Like just a brawl, and I can't imagine you're grabbing a hold in a blood feud. Mm-hmm. And that's what happened during this match, and it sort of just felt like an average Monday Night Raw wrestling match.
Yeah.
Like it should have been more to me because they hadn't had a match in quite some time. And it should have been more about the fight and a little more violent to me. I'm not saying you got to break out every weapon in the book, but I mean, you can have a very violent physical match and not using chairs and tables and that. Mm-hmm. I was all right with the triple threat tag match. I think it certainly would have been cool. Like the coolness factor could have been there with that tag match and being a TLC match.
Yeah.
But they had a chair match in a match between Randy Orton and Rey Mysterio in a match that didn't feel like it had as much steam as what Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins did. So, yeah, I don't understand. Some of that's on the booking team. Mm-hmm. Like some of that's on the writing team. That's wasn't well thought out, in my opinion. The pay-per-view as a whole, though, I thought was pretty good. Mm-hmm. I thought the women in the main event did a serviceable job in the main event.
How did you feel about how that main event ended, though? Like, I thought the entire thing was good until the end.
I'm not sure how I feel about it because you're talking about Ronda Rousey coming out.
Yeah.
I think it's leading somewhere, and I think that we're going to get something good out of this at WrestleMania. I hope. If it leads to nothing, it was a waste of time. But right. I hope it's leading towards something that somebody really has a good plan in mind. So I was okay with it. I wasn't okay. I'm not in love with like I said earlier. I don't think Becky Lynch should be losing matches right now. It's just my opinion. If you're trying to create her as a giant star, then you can't have her losing matches. I mean, it's just that simple. Unless it's right now in her development, like she's just starting out. Like she can't be losing matches. Like she's just starting out, but like this movement that they're gonna kill it. Mm-hmm. Mark my words, they're gonna kill the momentum that she has, which is so counterproductive to everything in business. I don't understand. If you have a hot product, you try to squeeze every dollar out of it you can, right. And instead they're like, and that's what's happening with Becky Lynch. And I felt that weeks ago. I think we talked about it here. So I don't understand what that was about. I thought the Daniel Bryan and AJ Styles match was fantastic. That match actually felt like a blood feud match. Like they were like smacking each other hard and like they were going after each other. That match was brilliant. Daniel Bryan as a heel, his in-ring work is fantastic. I mean, he was great as a babyface, but I think like he's even better of a wrestler as a heel. And on top of being just great in the ring, like he tells a great story with his face. Mm-hmm. And he makes a connection with the crowd, whether they love him or hate him. He is so capable. To me, he's the biggest star on SmackDown right now. And he should be. He's the champ.
Yeah.
So, like, he can make a connection. And that's, to me, that's the end game. Like, who can make the biggest connection to the crowd? Mm-hmm. And I think it's Daniel Bryan right now. I think on both brands, maybe Daniel Bryan is right there. Maybe, Becky Lynch was there. Mm-hmm. And by no fault of, maybe some fault of her own, that promo a few weeks ago, but by most part, it's the writing team there that maybe doesn't want. Maybe there's still a certain amount of sexism going on that doesn't want a woman to be the biggest star in the company. I'm not sure.
Right.
But how did you feel? The other thing I guess I'll complain about, and I don't know how you feel about it, is the length of the pay-per-view makes me nuts. I mean, it's just so long.
Yeah.
But overall,
we didn't even watch all of it because of the Steelers. We didn't get to watch the pre-show.
We didn't watch a pre-show, so just a regular pay-per-view was just forever. Did you like the pay-per-view?
Yeah, I liked it. I thought it was good.
Yeah.
It was long, but I thought for the most part, it was a really good show.
Okay.
I know that throughout the night we were wondering, like, okay, what matches do we have left? We kept forgetting what matches and what we thought some matches were on there and they weren't on there. Like Nakamura, I thought maybe he might have had a match, but
No
he
Nakamura Rusev match. That's going to be on just plain old boring SmackDown on Tuesday night next week.
And we also talked about the Samoa Joe and Jeff Hardy. He's
I
on...
definitely thought that was a match. I don't know what happened there, but
Yeah.
it
And that
fell
one's
through.
going to be on SmackDown too.
How do you feel about that? I know we talked a little bit about it, but I had some time to think about it last night. I think I'm tired of that Jeff Hardy's a drug addict angle. Like, they've done it a few times now. I'm just tired of it.
Well, this is the first time that I've really seen it. I know that they did it with CM Punk, but that's like
10
vague.
years ago.
Yeah. But that's really the only one I remember.
Okay.
I don't know. Last night it was weird. It just kind of felt fizzled. It didn't really seem.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm just tired of it. I mean, I know they need reasons for people to fight sometimes, but why can't it be fighting about who's getting a title shot next? Like, that doesn't seem like a blood feud anymore. Like, I'm trying to get to that title, and we can't seem to settle who's going to get to this title match.
But that's not really drama.
It can be.
But it's not like soap opera drama.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, is that what people want? Is that what you want?
Not really, but I mean,
What do you want?
I don't know. I want a good storyline. I want a good... Like, if you can give me a good storyline with the titles, great, go with it. If you can give me a good storyline when they're just fighting about something, good, do
What's
it.
the last good storyline that you remember? Is there one on television now that you really like?
I like the Dan O'Brien stuff.
I mean, that's a character, though. That's not
Right.
really an angle. I mean, the most recent, I guess, angle that the Natty and... I mean, that's sort of a storyline. She's mocking and broke the sunglasses. And
I didn't like that.
Don't like that. What about the Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins thing?
It's weird.
It's weird. You don't like it?
I don't know.
What do you like about wrestling? Why do you watch it?
I like wrestling.
Okay. I feel like you're every fan everywhere, though. You don't like it, but you can't stop watching it. Sometimes I felt that way over the last 40 years where, God, this is awful, but, it's like crack.
I don't think it's awful. I just think that there's not anything on TV right now that's really, like, amazing.
Yeah, I think the last big storyline that, like, I absolutely fell in love with in every way was the Daniel Bryan holding the company holding down Daniel Bryan and then him climbing the mountain at WrestleMania. Like, that was my most favorite thing they've done in the last, I don't know, 15 years since they were doing stuff with Austin. So I love that. So overall, as a whole, did you think Raw was a better show than the week before?
Yes.
Did you think SmackDown was a better show than the week before?
I thought it was about the same.
Okay. How did you feel about the main event? That there two guys that we don't typically see in a main event, Mustafa Ali and Cien Almos. How did you feel about those two being in the main event?
I liked it. It was different. I don't know. It's so surprising to me that Mustafa is on the main roster now. Like, it kind of seems like they're saying 205 Live is not as good of a show. Like, and I know it's kind of like NXT where everybody's trying to get to the main roster, but like, I never thought of it that way for 205.
Yeah. I've never watched one episode of 205 Live ever.
I know.
Ever.
Yeah.
And I don't have a good excuse. I like wrestling, and I like some of the guys that are on there. Like, I think Hideo Itami is still on there. I liked his stuff in NXT, and I've seen some of his stuff in All Japan, and I like his stuff. I don't have a good excuse not to watch it. That Buddy Murphy that's the champion, or at least he was the last time I saw, I kind of like his intensity and his way of going about structuring a match. I just don't have an excuse. I think the only excuse I have is that I just haven't fallen into watching it, A, and secondly, there's just too much wrestling on television.
Right.
I mean, there's so much of it. So, all right. Well, I think we covered a lot. Boy, that was a long video. Me just talking and talking and talking, and you being like, "Please shut up," so I could talk. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we wrap it up?
Not that I can think of.
You know, it'd be nice to get a good Christmas present this year. Maybe a little bit of Too Sweet for Christmas.
Happy holidays.